If someone calls you and your heart drops, but you'll write them a full essay over text, psychology has just revealed something shocking about your brain that explains everything. And no, you're not just being rude. Look, we need to talk about this because right now, someone in your life thinks you're avoiding them. They called, you ignored it, then sent, "Hey, sorry, can't talk right now, what's up?" And they're probably thinking you're dodging them or being shady. But here's what's really happening. And I'm going to prove to you that preferring texts over calls isn't just a preference. It's actually revealing something deeper about how your mind processes the world. Before we begin, here's a quick question, and be honest in the comments. When someone calls you unexpectedly, do you feel anxiety, annoyance, or actual panic? Because your answer reveals which category you fall into. So first, let's get something straight. You're not alone in this. Recent studies show that 75% of millennials and Gen Z actually experience anxiety when their phone rings. 75%. And it's not because we're antisocial or rude, it's because our brains have literally rewired themselves for a different type of communication. But here's where it gets interesting. Psychology researchers have identified that people who prefer texting over calling share some very specific personality traits and cognitive patterns. And some of them might surprise you. So let's break down the real psychology behind why you'd rather text. Reason number 1, you need cognitive control. Here's what most people don't understand. When someone calls you, they're essentially demanding immediate access to your attention, your thoughts, and your emotional bandwidth right now. There's no warning, no preparation, just drop everything and perform. And for certain personality types, specifically people high in conscientiousness and those who are analytical thinkers, this feels like a cognitive ambush. Psychology researchers call this processing time preference. Your brain literally needs time to formulate responses. When you text, you get that. You can read, think, craft your response, edit it, and then send. Phone calls? You're expected to respond in milliseconds. And for people who value precision in communication, which is likely you, that's not just uncomfortable, it's almost impossible. Think about it. Have you ever been on a call and thought of the perfect thing to say? 5 minutes after you hung up? That's because your brain needed processing time that the call didn't give you. And here's the kicker. Studies show that people who prefer texting actually communicate more effectively in written form because they have time to organize their thoughts. So you're not avoiding communication, you're optimizing it. Reason number 2, phone calls are emotionally exhausting for you. And no, this doesn't mean you're socially anxious. Well, not necessarily. Here's what's happening. During a phone call, your brain is doing multiple things simultaneously. Processing tone of voice, interpreting meaning, formulating responses, managing awkward silences, reading emotional subtext, maintaining energy and engagement. It's like your brain is juggling while running a marathon. And for introverts or highly sensitive people, this burns through your social battery fast. Research from the Journal of Social Psychology found that introverts experience phone calls as more draining than in-person conversations. Why? Because you can't read body language or facial expressions to help interpret meaning. You're flying blind with only audio cues. Texting? It's asynchronous. You respond when you have the energy. There's no pressure to match someone else's emotional state in real time. You're in control of the interaction pace. And get this. People who prefer texting often have higher emotional intelligence because they've learned to communicate clearly without relying on vocal tone. They choose words more carefully. They're more intentional. So if someone tells you preferring texts means you lack communication skills, they've got it completely backwards. Reason number 3, you value your autonomy and boundaries. This is big. And it might be the most important one. When you prefer texting, what you're really saying is, I respect my time and attention as valuable resources. Phone calls are interruptions. They demand synchronous engagement. They don't care if you're in the middle of something, in a bad mood, or simply not in the headspace to talk. Texts? You respond on your schedule. And psychology research shows that people who set these kinds of boundaries actually have higher self-esteem and better mental health outcomes. Here's a study that'll blow your mind. Researchers found that people who prefer asynchronous communication, texting, email, score higher on self-directedness and autonomy scales, meaning you're more likely to be self-motivated, independent, and comfortable making decisions without external validation. Think about the people who love calling. Often they need immediate responses. They want instant validation or resolution. They struggle with uncertainty. You're comfortable with delayed gratification. You can sit with ambiguity. You don't need immediate closure. That's not a weakness. That's actually a sign of emotional maturity. Plus, let's be real. Texts create a paper trail. If someone agrees to something or makes a commitment, you have proof. Calls, just memory and he said, she said. Your preference for texting might actually be protecting you from miscommunication and gaslighting. Reason number 4, your attention is your most valuable asset. This is where it gets really interesting from a neuroscience perspective. Your brain can't actually multitask. That's a myth. What it does is task switching, and every switch costs you cognitive energy and time. Studies show it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully regain focus after an interruption. A phone call? That's a major interruption. It hijacks your attention completely. You can't do anything else meaningful while on a call without being rude or distracted. But texting? You can integrate it into your workflow. Respond between tasks. Think while doing other things. Your attention stays more distributed and controlled. And here's what's fascinating. Research shows that people who prefer texting are often high achievers or people in demanding careers. Why? Because they've learned to protect their deep work time. Phone calls fragment your day into unusable chunks. Texts let you batch communication and maintain productivity. Plus, and this is crucial, texting shows you respect other people's time too. You're not demanding they drop everything for you. You're giving them the same courtesy of asynchronous response that you want for yourself. That's not antisocial. That's considerate. Now here's where we need to get real for a second. While everything I've said is true, there is a shadow side to this preference that you need to be aware of. The potential downsides. 1. You might be using texting to avoid difficult conversations. If you never call, even for serious topics, you might be using texts as an emotional shield. Some conversations genuinely need vocal tone and immediate back and forth. 2. You could be missing out on deeper connection. Research shows that voice-to-voice communication builds intimacy faster than text. The vulnerability of real-time conversation creates bonding that texts can't always replicate. 3. Conflicts are harder to resolve over text. Without tone, things get misinterpreted. That K hits different from a reassuring voice saying, okay. And 4. You might be causing relationship friction with people who have different communication preferences. And here's the thing. Both preferences are valid. So here's my advice. The healthiest approach is flexibility. Prefer texting for logistics, quick questions, and when you need processing time? Absolutely. But challenge yourself occasionally. Call someone you trust. Practice real-time conversation. Build that muscle. Because the strongest communicators aren't just good at their preferred method. They can adapt to what the situation and relationship needs. But here's the real question nobody's asking. Maybe the reason you prefer texting isn't about anxiety or introversion at all. Maybe it's because you're living in a world that constantly demands your immediate attention. Social media notifications, work emails, news alerts, and texting is the one form of communication where you get to control the pace. In a world optimized for interruption and distraction, preferring text might actually be an act of self-preservation. You're not avoiding people. You're protecting your peace. You're not being antisocial. You're being intentional. And in 2025, that's actually revolutionary. All right, so here's what I want to know. Comment 1, if you're a text-only person who feels seen right now. Comment 2, if you prefer calls and you're learning something about your texting friends. Comment the 3 if you're somewhere in the middle. And here's the controversial question. Do you think preferring texts over calls is going to become the new normal? Or are we losing something important as a society? Let me know in the comments because I'm genuinely curious what you think. If this video helped you understand yourself or someone you love a little better, hit that like button. And subscribe because we're diving deep into the psychology of everyday behaviors every single week. And hey, maybe send this video to that person who keeps calling you when they could just text. Maybe they'll finally understand. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.